Our brains often seek immediate gratification. They're designed to trigger cravings that relate to anything from food, to more money and freedom, to the perfect house, more time to relax, more peace and happiness, more fun and excitement, and a myriad of other things. On a physical level, cravings, wants, and desires come from the reward processing center in the brain. This reward system is a group of neural structures responsible for a person's motivation, particularly regarding pleasure. And reward stimulus is noted as any object, event, circumstance, or activity that has the potential to cause a person to have a desire for it because the brain deems it as a reward. Sometimes this is a short-term reward, such as eating a particular food, and sometimes it's a long-term reward, such as working towards the career or home that we want to live in. Our desires originate from the reward processing activity in our brains before we notice them in our bodies or feeling states. Instinctually, our brains naturally hold a powerful desire for the things that assist us in survival, such as food and reproduction. More so, we learn to desire what we've become accustomed to having. In other words, our brains trick us into needing things that we don't really need. For example, a carton of ice cream just before going to bed. And this is why those who have addiction seem to have their brains hijacked. But beyond those types of desires, we then learn to see what others have and realize their reward for having it. Once this takes place, the brain becomes determined to find ways to have that reward. It's on a larger scale than having the basic food for survival, or even the carton of ice cream. Nonetheless, the reward center is our physical driving force behind all of our desires. So why is this so important? Because your brain is designed to give you cravings for what it instinctually knows from a survival standpoint, and for what it has learned that you like. But it also has the capacity to crave things that you have never experienced before. The brain only creates a desire for 3 reasons. It's instinctual for survival, we've experienced something similar previously, or the mind can imagine what the reward would be like. The desire originates in the brain and then triggers us with motivation to attain it. This is when the desire becomes conscious. A conscious desire is integrated with the feeling states, partially the feeling of longing for it, and partially the imagined feeling of having it. So how can your brain know to desire something that you've never had? How can it trigger the feeling states within you of what it must be like to encounter the event, object, circumstance, or activity that you have never experienced in your physical state? You might want that particular relationship, vacation, or job, but how do you know you want it if you've never had it? What reward does your brain tell you that you will get from having it? These questions are designed to prompt the realization that there is a larger part of you that already knows the satisfaction of having what you want. You can't really desire something without the physical apparatus of your brain understanding that there is a reward involved in attaining it. And your brain can only know this if a part of you has experienced that reward or the feeling of it already. These are instinctive impulses that seek satisfaction in accordance with the pleasure principle it has awareness of. In other words, you cannot want something without the brain realizing the reward of having it. And it cannot realize the reward of having it without experiencing the feeling states of that. Therefore, you have the capacity to already know what it feels like to have the thing you want. It can't be any other way. There's a part of you that triggers you to remember what it's like to have the thing you want because it knows the experience of it. This is not to say that having a carton of ice cream is the best thing for you. This is to say that if you desire something you've never physically experienced, it's because you know how to experience it within yourself on a much higher level, whether you believe that to be true or not. The next logical question becomes, how do you nurture those feeling states of what you desire more often so you can draw it into your physical experience? When trying to manifest something intentionally, the want or desire for that thing can sometimes trigger stress and frustration. If this happens, the energy we are putting out is a focus on lack rather than possession. And we all know the feeling of lack will produce more of that. It's important to note that a desire can be triggered. For example, you might see someone that's really in shape and realize that you also desire to be in shape. You might even also realize that just the words ice cream cause you to really crave a bowl of ice cream. These are examples of triggers, and they happen to us all day long. This is because we are always full of desires, many of which are intended to move us into new experiences and help us evolve. And our outer world is a reflection of our internal workings. So these triggers are designed as reminders of our desires. Therefore, it's important to consciously create triggers for what we crave in ways that don't stress us out and cause us to come from a place of lack. Here's the good news. If you have the desire, it's because a part of you already knows what it's like to experience it, and that's really powerful. The frustration and stress are the only things that block our manifestations. Next, it's important to understand that on a physical level, cravings cause dopamine, and the anticipation of a reward can increase this. Dopamine is often recognized as the main chemical that creates pleasure. Scientists have discovered that dopamine signals the value of a reward, motivates the action to attain it, and increases pleasure. So adding more dopamine to our willpower assists us in being more successful with our positive desires. The easiest way to do this is by combining a positive desire with something that gives us satisfaction. So the task is to reward the brain while imagining something that you want. And it's best to do this in the healthiest way possible so we can achieve multiple goals at once. For instance, if you always feel fantastic after going for a jog, you could use this physical activity to imagine in great detail what it would be like to experience something you wish for while performing the activity. You might perform the task of jogging while envisioning yourself working at the ideal job, or imagining yourself in the perfect relationship. Doing this provides you with a flush of dopamine while releasing stress hormones, so your body associates the new memory you're creating with the exact feeling state required to manifest it. When you combine that state of satisfaction with the imagination of something that you want, you create the ideal state within yourself to draw it into your physical reality. Another important thing to note is that negative desires can sometimes dominate the positive desires we would like to manifest in our lives. This happens when the physical body is in charge rather than the mind and spirit. If you have a desire that you feel is affecting you negatively, you can dismantle that craving. Let's use the example again of eating an entire carton of ice cream. You may realize that the instant gratification is great, but that you feel horrible after doing so. Anytime your brain prompts you to eat the carton of ice cream again, give yourself a full 5 minutes to think through every single step from the desire of eating the ice cream to the bellyache you experience afterwards. This requires self-control, but it's a fantastic way to consciously control any desires that stand in the way of your long-term goals. In this case, it may be that you just want to feel or look better, or be overall healthier than you have been. But whatever the case may be, this particular process can help you make the new desire more dominant than the one you no longer want or need. Furthermore, a third way to use the reward center of your brain to manifest more of what you want is by withholding rewards from yourself until you've performed a task that lines up with manifesting your larger desire. For example, every time you work out 7 days straight, you can buy yourself an ice cream cone. Although it may sound contradictory, and discernment is important, this turns the consumption you crave, in this example the ice cream, into a beneficial reward. This incites the motivation of action portion of the process required for manifestation and aligns perfectly with the way in which your brain works. Combining these 3 techniques helps you literally rewire your brain to use your reward center to your advantage. We all have cravings on a daily basis, and whether you're craving something as simple as ice cream or a full-fledged new manifestation and experience, The basic science behind all of our cravings is the same. Your instinctive reward system is designed to make you pursue or chase a goal. But beyond the science of it, the Spirit is constantly prodding us to have new experiences. And this is just one of the ways to create those things in your life.